And welcome to an exciting day here at City Hall. Not really sure what that was, but we've got music all the way around. Welcome. We have our very special guest, Nadia Miller, who is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, joining us today, which I'm really happy about. I'm also happy about it that they decided not to invert and put diversity, inclusion, and equity, because I think it presents a whole other bad thing. So, yeah, it's been that kind of a day already here at City Hall. So let's just kind of jump right in. There's always a lot of talk about these DEI positions, whether it's at the state level, federal level, and all of that type of stuff. Obviously, I think they're needed. Council thinks they're needed. But what do you think are some of the big reasons why a position like this is needed in, whether it be local government, schools, things like that?
Yes, so it is very fortunate that there's talk about DEI positions. The unfortunate reality is it kind of exposes some of the inequities and challenges that occur in the systems and in the workplace. So I would say they're very necessary in order for reform and change and positive outcomes. On the bright side, we're finally acknowledging those issues and giving us a chance to kind of address those things that are happening. So the DEI position is kind of that next step to kind of take action and really address those issues. But in light of Black History Month, I would just like to add it's not an exclusive issue to Reynoldsburg. As we know, it's United States has struggled a little bit with as a whole and has a long history of racial inequity in employment. And so exclusionary hiring was only banned in 1964 with the Civil Rights Act. So as a result of that desegregation, another set of issues were born as we now work side by side.
And it's interesting because, you look at it and people say that issues of racial discrimination or not hiring based on race and things of that nature, first of all, they are still very present all the way throughout. But then it's also the things that are, and I don't want to take away from some of your other answers, but one of the things that, when you get just an application coming in, there's unintended biases that you may not even recognize as an individual. And if you see a name that is identifiable as, in essence, a non-traditional, non-white name, or is it in HBCU that might be there that would automatically lead you to go in one particular direction or not based on things. And that's what we're trying to talk about. That's some of those things that have been put in place in the past that, one application's, oh, this is great, and then another application that is just as, or if not more so qualified, but because of these other things that are there that triggers, oh, we don't want to go in that direction. And so this is just another check to make sure that happens in addition to all the other things. Now, Reynoldsburg, as we all know, is different, and we do things differently here. So what are some of the things that we're doing differently or things that we're doing better as we've kind of committed to this DEI philosophy?
Certainly. So Reynoldsburg has been definitely more intentional in the way we serve our diverse community. So we've been enhancing our systems to collect DEI data. So now we're able to track our progress and make better data-informed decisions. And so we kind of know where we stand. We also have more inclusive hiring practices, as you mentioned.
Yes, I knew I was going to steal that one.
Yeah, and so which is a great thing. And then we have more professional development opportunities just to kind of equip our staff with how to serve our more diverse residents in our diverse communities. Our directors have been champions in updating their process and policies, specifically around procurement and trying to encourage the use of minority, female, and veteran businesses as we contract our services and needs.
Yeah, and that's a good thing because I think that, one thing that I think we've run into, especially in a suburban community as opposed to, say, the city of Columbus, is a lot of the minority and female or veteran businesses may not necessarily know that the options are available in the suburban communities, either because of poor previous experience or perceptions or something like that. And I think that being able to work with, let's say our contractors that are doing design things, EMH&T for instance, to make sure that we have some of that language in there. It doesn't do anything that adds cost to it, but what it does is it brings awareness that when you're looking for subcontractors, that one of the things to look for is making sure that we're making all of these options available to everyone out there and not just going with the same old, because that's what we've always done. So.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that, you mentioned suburban communities, and I feel like Reynoldsburg being different is us just kind of leading the way, showing other suburbs that it can be, how do we embrace the change? How is it beneficial to the communities? And I feel like Reynoldsburg being different is just kind of being that example for other suburbs.
We will, hopefully they will take us up on this and many other things. Now, one thing that we've done the last couple of years is a major project that you've played a role in, which is our Minority, Female, and Veteran Business Grant. The last 2 years have been through the America Recovers Act funds. And so this year now we're trying to decide, and council will ultimately make the decision, do we move this program forward with other funds, because those funds are pretty much exhausted out. Over the last 2 years, we've given away pretty much close to $200,000 in funding for small businesses, which is huge because small businesses are our lifeblood. So the question is, what were your takeaways from the experience, other than the insane bureaucracy of the federal government and all the rules that we have to follow? Outside of that.
Outside of all that, the grant was a great experience to be a part of. It was very rewarding to be able to support our small businesses here in the community and really help them stay afloat, so to speak, and just kind of help them with the challenges, some of the challenges they face as small businesses. So it was really good to have that program for them. I also learned more about the needs of our diverse businesses. So like the equity piece in DEI is kind of understanding the individual needs of the different cultures. And so I was able to speak a lot to the small business owners, which was very useful when it comes to developing DEI programs. So
it's good to have that, and especially, not to say that it's not boring here at City Hall, it's not, but the opportunity to get out and go into some of these businesses to see what they have to offer. I know there have been a few that we went into, and now they become kind of like staples of some of the people here at City Hall, that they will go for something to eat, something to drink, things of that nature, which is something that maybe they would not have done had they not had that initial experience. So I know there's a lot of things going on, and you got a lot of things on your to-do list for this year, but what are some of the goals that you have for Reynoldsburg this year? What are some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, so I would love to continue to build on the work we've done so far, specifically around the Diversity Business Certification Program. I would love to increase the number of businesses in our directory. And as you mentioned, just the raising the awareness. Folks don't even know they may exist. And so maybe doing some type of exposure for them and trying to say, hey, here's our businesses here in Reynoldsburg. I think that would be really helpful. And then I also believe that the certification program would assist in the my goal to increase utilization in contracting, just giving folks a list to go to. If they're really eager to try to participate and really and be more inclusive, we want to give them a place to go and say, here, instead of you just kind of looking for a needle in a haystack, we want to help you find folks and give you somewhere to go. So I feel like that's critical for them.
Absolutely. So do we have any questions that are on? No? Okay, good. Do you have a few minutes to stick around?
Yeah,
good.
Now.
So there's obviously a lot of things going on. We touched on a few of those things, and tomorrow night we will have the Reynoldsburg State of the City. It'll be I guess you'd say the fifth annual State of the City. It's going to be here at City Hall. We're going to open the doors at 6:30, and then the program itself will begin at 7 o'clock, and then at the end, if there's an opportunity for people to want to ask me questions or something, you can do so. Basically, we're going to be talking a lot about partnerships. What I've learned over the last few years is that cities can accomplish a number of things on their own, but there are other things that kind of go in that we need other entities, whether they be nonprofit organizations, which a number of them will be here tomorrow night, or whether it's working with our partners in Franklin County, whether it's working with our state partners and things of that nature, whether it's just working with our community members are going to be there. So we're really excited about that. Hope you can make it out. Parking is free, so you can just come out here at City Hall. We are looking to try and broadcast this on Facebook, assuming we can figure out how to get the logistics through the council chamber thing. We couldn't touch it before council was on Monday because our clerk of council, Molly, might have, well, some of us might not be here anymore if we did that. So we're going to go ahead and test that out probably later today. We also have some fun things going on with Reynoldsburg City Schools. As you know, that they have their board open office hours. Board member Whitman has it every Friday from 4 to 5. The first half hour is going to be online on Facebook. But we also have some dates tomorrow from 1 to 2 at the Graham Welcome Center, and on February 26th we have it at 5 p.m. at the Graham Welcome Center. I don't know which board members will be there, but somebody's going to be there if you have questions. Obviously, a lot of things are going on with the schools. I'll touch on that tomorrow as well, so we're really looking forward to it. We do have a couple of updates on roads. As you all know, yes, Main Street is having a little work, but it's not Main Street. It's actually some of the stuff on the side. So what you're seeing if you're headed westbound towards Columbus, you're seeing the tree pits actually get taken care of. And so that's going to be the first thing that they're looking at. And then on the other side of the road, so that's going to take a day, maybe 2 at most, to get those things in. They probably could be done by the end of the day today. And then the other side of the street, the corner of Jackson and Main, is where they're working on the retaining wall. Obviously, they couldn't do the retaining wall earlier this year because of the weather and things of that nature and getting the stone in. So now that the temperatures are getting a little bit more consistent, that's why it's there. These are very minor things all the way across, unlike what Wagner Road will be, which will be a much more robust program. And that will probably start, like I said, probably in early April. So those are the things going on with the roads. We do have some cool things going on with our police department. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to participate, but my wife took the class. It's great. It's a women's defense class.
Nice.
And so it's for any woman between the ages of 12 and whichever. They're going to have the class on March 5th, 19th, 26th, and 12th. There we go. And so they're going to be there from 5:30 to 8:30 on those dates. It's free. You register. You can check it out on the Reynoldsburg webpage, and you go from there. There's some class environment thing about best practices, what to do, what not to do, and then there's times where you just get to throw people around. So it's a great opportunity. It's something I wish we didn't have to do in this world, but unfortunately we do have to, and it's always good to have that kind of experience in there. And if you hadn't noticed, there was a little bit of traffic enforcement the last little bit. So I was watching along the lines, and a lot of it was a lot of thank yous for RPD getting out there and having a day that they specifically focused on traffic citations. There was almost kind of like a radio station request line where you're like, hey, I'd like to hear this. And at this point it was like, I want you on this road or this road or this road or every road. So there was things in there. And then there were a few questions that I wanted to kind of break down for some things. Out of the 64 stops, there were 19 citations. Out of those 19 citations, they were for speeding. And the average speed at that point is, I think I saw anywhere a 37 and a 25, a 50 and a 35, and things of that nature. There were 3 driving under suspensions, which means their license had been legally suspended. And before you go, well, wait, how does that happen? Yeah, people drive with their suspended license. But when they come into court, there's going to be options for them to work with our court to make sure that they can get their license back and not suspended anymore. So it's more or less a process to it. So yes, it is a citation and then, but if they follow whatever the number of steps are to get their license back, they can do so. And then at that point, they get their license and then that gets wiped away. So it's not a punitive thing. It's more of just maybe helping people understand what they can do to get their license back. Mm-hmm. And one of them was an OVI, or operating a vehicle while intoxicated. And keep in mind, most of this was during the middle of the day, so somebody took a little day drinking too far and probably should not have done that. The other ones were 45 warnings. And so these were warnings, which means that the speed probably was not huge in terms of more than 10 miles an hour. It's probably just, a smaller range. The rest of them were expired plates. So if your license plate is expired, they would pull you over and say, hey, you need to get this taken care of. And then the other one was improper turning. And this would be an example of if you're in one lane and you basically cross another lane to make a left-hand turn, those types of things, which occasionally does happen here in Reynoldsburg and every other community. So this is not the first time that this is going to happen. We are going to do it again, and I'm sure we will vary the areas in which we go. But the takeaway of this is, a couple of things. One, this happened to be a day that worked, that there were not a lot of other calls of service going on. And so they were able to dedicate a lot of the resources to have the officers out there. We cannot have this happen on a consistent basis. We do not have the staffing for it. We did talk with council late last year about bringing in additional officers for that, but it was one thing that became, council decided that it was just going to be too costly, especially with the increase in property taxes and things like that. That may be something we revisit in a while. I will say that there are no communities in Central Ohio that actually have that kind of traffic division where you're talking that many officers that are specifically scheduled for traffic enforcement. So it's not always the same thing. But we are Reynoldsburg, so who knows, maybe in the future we will do things different. I know I've talked about some police officers of the week in the past, and honestly, anybody who participated in that traffic enforcement day was good. If you're giving out 45 warnings, I'm sure there were 45 people that, as they drove away, they're like, whew, that they got away with it that time, that type of thing. But hopefully we can learn our lessons and figure out how to address, like, again, if your license is expired or if you have a suspended license or something along those lines. Those are good things. Any questions about that so far?
Well, you addressed it a little bit. It says, how many days per month will traffic enforcement focus? And you said...
Yeah, I think right now, I know the goal is let's start off at least once a month. Now that may vary between now and then. Obviously, this is an extra long month because we have one more day than every other February. So you may see it a little bit more, but a lot of it is going to be dependent upon, they could go into it on a day in March and think that they're going to do this the entire day the same way, and then something happens and we cannot have that many officers out there because there's other issues, there's traffic accidents, there's other kind of things where police are called to. So it may be starting out that way, and then maybe it'll shift into something else, and then we'll have to come back to it.
Follow up to that is, can we utilize a state patrol for traffic enforcement of Main Street?
They are as absolutely even more understaffed than most departments, so they cannot. Every now and then I do see a state patrol officer on in Reynoldsburg that will kind of patrol around. The reality of the situation is there's just not as many officers now as there used to be, and because of the nature of some of the criminal activity and things of that going on, we're not going to be able to get to that point. The numbers that I recall, and I can't remember exactly, but basically you're looking at about a $200-ish per 100,000 that would be needed for property tax values to add the staff on there. So you're looking, if you have an average price in Reynoldsburg right now is around $300,000. So you're looking at about $750, extra in property taxes, to go through that per month to get that kind of robust traffic enforcement. So it's limiting. So
that's it for right now.
All right. We do have a couple of town halls coming up. The first one is going to be the Flood Grant Town Hall. That is going to be at the Senior Center on February 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. After tomorrow, you'll probably see some of those things coming out, and we'll get some information out there through social media and contacting everybody. But this is in regards to some of the flooding that we have seen over the past couple of years. The 4 inches of rain in 90 minutes that made basically City Hall area a parking lot of water and got into people's basements and things like that. This is primarily going to be information gathering. They're going to bring everybody in and have a conversation about what the process looks like, and then they're going to have some breakout rooms like, if you live in this part of town, please go to this room. If you live in this part of town, go to that room. And they can get some more information from the individuals about what they've seen, what they've experienced, and things like that as we continue to move forward with that program. We also have some really fun news. The park bench that we did with all the plastic recycling will be here tomorrow night. It will have its own little place of honor at the State of the City. Eventually, it's going to be put out at McPherson Park, and we're going to go ahead and do that. And we are back live. We are collecting the plastics again so we can get that next park bench all the way across. So if you have them, you can drop them off at the Senior Center here at City Hall, and then obviously the police department. Police department's 24 hours a day. City Hall and Senior Center are when those areas are open. Parks and Rec's got a couple of cool things going on. They've got the stained glass work, which begins March 7th through April 25th. It's Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Senior Center, so you go in and work with a little stained glass. On February 25th, you have the wooden bookmarks on Sunday the 25th from 2 to 3:30 at the Senior Center. And then we've got a couple of cool things going on. I think this is like a preview. The Thursday, February 29th, which is not often I can say February 29th, they're going to have a STEM Challenge Island at the Senior Center for STEM enrichment. And I think this is a preview of some of the things that they are going to do for spring break, because believe it or not, spring break is going to come pretty quick. Other things in parks, the big news obviously is Bryce Park. We did open the bids last week, and we got the quote-unquote winning bid. Again, not nearly as exciting as everybody thinks it is. It's yay, it's now we get to spend it. So, but we have that in, and so Columbus is reviewing everything, and we hope to get that out and sign contracts through council probably the next council meeting in February, maybe at the latest in March, depending on how quickly Columbus turns things around, and that means we'll start seeing some progress and work on Bryce Park. So thank you to the City of Columbus for that partnership. And then I'm going to go through some quick development updates. I did see a lot of things where, in spite of the fact that this is a topic we've been talking about for a number of years, the building that's on the corner of Main and Lancaster at the former Happy Dragon site, it'll eventually be called the Paragon site. It's going to have a little bit of everything. It's going to have a coffee shop, it's going to have ice cream, it's going to have a dentist office, which I find conveniently close to the ice cream, so you kind of go back and forth. But that will be there, and as you can see, for those people that looked at it and said, oh, they'll never be able to fit all that in there. Well, if you drive by it, you can see the height of it and how much it is. But that's scheduled to open up later this year, which will then open up some of those parking places in the area. So again, additional 38 parking spaces in our Old Town area, which we're very, very excited about. So that work is moving forward. We have the Alliance facility, which is doing the absolute most boring thing that you can do, which is all the underground water and sewers. So when you drive by the corner of Main and Bryce, that's what you're seeing. You see a big hole with dirt, and you're going to see people working in it, and then they'll fill it up, and then they'll empty it out, and then they'll go back to work. So if you've driven on Main Street in the last couple of years, you know exactly what that's like, but that's what happens with that. Eastwood, we have a couple of cool things going on there. The multifamily and the senior living is getting closer and closer to getting ready to open up. I know that the multifamily is actually leasing as we speak. And just beyond that, by the Summit High School and Elementary School, they're starting to build and go vertical, as they call it in the business, with some of the housing out there. So some of those things are going on. Central Ohio Primary Care is scheduled to open up about a month from now, give or take a couple of weeks. And as you drive by there, you can see how much progress they've made now. Everything seems to be working towards the inside. The hotel on the 256 corridor by BW3s is moving forward, so they're moving pretty quick, so they'll be open here in a couple of months. And then obviously I think the library's, again, probably set to open April, May-ish, somewhere around in there. So those are a couple of the things that are worked on. A few other ones, the field next to the Central Ohio Primary Care, we actually had a meeting earlier today to kind of talk about that. So we are taking our steps to see what goes there. The best that I can say about what's going on there is some youth-oriented athletic facilities, some retail and things of that nature. So we'll see what's kind of going in there at some point. That's what our hope is. So that's in that area. The PNC right across the way, I can tell you what my vision for that is and what we've talked about. You've heard me say it before. First floor, you're going to have a restaurant and office. So I think that's what we're looking for. I cannot guarantee you that it's going to be Roosters, but I know that a lot of people would love to see a Roosters there, so we'll see. A lot of things have to happen for something like that, but some kind of restaurant and then office there and then probably some living up above. So hopefully if we can figure out a way to work that one, we're moving forward on that. And so those are some of our big things, but the future goal really for all of us is going to be working on kind of two things. One, bringing in those career-based job type facilities here, especially now that it looks like we're getting some movement with some of the Intel suppliers and things like that. And then the other thing are what I call the quality of life things. The why can't we have nice things in Reynoldsburg? That's kind of where we're going with. So we're trying to find ways to bring those in. Not the easiest thing in the world all the time because, again, things cost money and everybody wants to get the best deal for it. So, but we're going to continue to try and bring in those things. So do we have any questions about any of those things?
Question statement. Can we place a plaque on the bench to recognize the intern who launched this program for that recycling?
I wonder who put that in there. I think that perhaps that intern might have that in there. So yeah, that might be a possibility.
And then any updates about the old automotive technician site?
That's the last one. Yeah. So we're looking at that one. Originally, the idea was that the veterinary hospital next door was contemplating maybe moving to a different location, and that site would be combined. That hasn't gone anywhere, so we have not heard anything for that one. So right now, it's going to be a little bit of a staging area for some of the construction work, and we're going to try and get some at least parking in the short term. And we're going to look and work with some grants to see what we can do. Does it turn into an area where residents can go after they grab a pizza at Vic's or get some ice cream? They have a place to sit down. Maybe there's a splash pad there, something along those lines. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
That's it, Brady.
All right. Always good questions all the way across. Now, this is a really big one because I know that there are a lot of people out there, especially now that the weather is warming and things of that nature. Litter. Litter is a huge issue. It is an issue in every city. I've driven to a couple of areas. I've talked to some other mayors and managers, and they're saying the same thing. There's certain parts of town that are always very much with litter. And so we're always looking for people to do litter cleanup. I know there's a number of residents that actually go out and they take a bag and they take their little trash picker and they go pick it up any way that they want to and they go ahead and do it, and it's awesome. And they're not looking for recognition. They're not trying to sit there and say, hey, look at me, I did this. But they're also saying, hey, we need to do a better job. We need to do a better job of teaching our kids that that's not appropriate, and most of that is by modeling. So if you're driving and you feel like you got to throw something out of the car, don't. It's not worth what happens to our environment, especially considering how long it takes to either pick that up or for that stuff to decompose. So we're going to be looking at that. We're also, as the weather gets a little warmer, code enforcement will be working with some of our businesses that might not do as good a job of making sure that their area is cleaned up. It's not something that they want to do, but the reality is it's something that they have to do. So we'll continue to work with those as well as some of the other projects all the way throughout. But if you're interested in having a group go out into a particular area of town, please let us know. We have that option for the litter cleanup and the Adopt a Road program, so that's pretty cool as well. Any questions?
Can you address the building house next to the vet that was going to be a barber shop? Any updates
Yeah,
on
that as of right now, it is still going to be. I believe that they went through their planning and zoning board last week. Their issue at this point that was, I don't want to call it holding up, but it was a difference of opinions. In our Old Town area, there's very strict requirements on how many signs you can have. And so in that area, you can technically only have 2. However, because it's a barber shop, the Ohio Revised Code says you have to have a barber pole. And so that would then make it 3. So there were conversations about how all that would work out. So I think they've moved forward with that. And so it is still intended to be that. And now that they've got the signage stuff taken care of, you'll probably see a lot more movement on that particular thing. All right. With that, again, I highly encourage you to come out to the State of the City tomorrow night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely going to be talking about a lot of cool things about what's going on in Reynoldsburg and some other directional ideas all the way throughout the city. We also have pickleball. I don't know if you play pickleball.
I have not.
Okay. I have not either, and that's because that you can tell because I'm not walking around with a brace on my leg and things of that nature. But Saturday, March 23rd at the Reynoldsburg Community Church, the Chamber of Commerce is going to be hosting kind of a pickleball 101. So if there's a possibility of learning how to do that, then here you go. If you're interested, please contact the Reynoldsburg Chamber of Commerce. You can either talk to Pam Coulter at and Ben at reynoldsburgchamber.com or call 614-866-4753. And if you're going and it's Pickleball 101 and you're going and you just kind of pick up a racket and things like that, that's good. If you're going and you see a group opening the back of their trunk and they take out an entire thing and different rackets and all of that other stuff, don't play them first. Play somebody else first. Just throwing that out there for you. With that, I think that's about it, unless there's any last second questions that have come in. Oh, I know. Engage Reynoldsburg. I knew that was going to say. We actually had our last refresher training yesterday, and so now it is just counting down the minutes until the app stores have them loaded up and everything.
It's just the Android app has not completed their process yet, so
Yep.
we're just waiting on that. We were hoping to go live today, but that has been the delay on that.
All right.
We had a question come up asking about, you had addressed this earlier, but if you can address the State of the City being on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to try and get it that way. The reason why it's a technological issue. So we used to have our city council meetings on Facebook. However, the Facebook programming and how that they did the recording system and all of the minutes and everything that we have to have was not compatible with Facebook. So we had to go to that other program, which is now based in our website itself. So we have not really tried to go through that system through Facebook downstairs and done it live since that point in time, but we are going to try and do this tomorrow. But it is a very convoluted thing to go through the various features to get Facebook, whether it's Facebook obstacles or our technology in city council chambers, that's an obstacle. But we're going to try and get it out there. At best, it's going to be on Facebook. At worst, it will be on our webpage through the same way that you would watch a city council meeting. I would like to put it on Facebook, so we're going to see if we can get that done.
Can you provide some advice? A neighbor has chickens and a rooster, and they are very close to French Run School. Feel it's not safe for our kids. What can we do?
Well, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you go ahead and provide as much of an address to somebody in code enforcement. They will kind of do a drive-by and they will look for visible evidence of that. If they feel that they do see visible evidence of chickens, then it will become an issue for the Reynoldsburg Police Department. And in most cases, usually everybody gets a very limited amount of time to have those chickens removed. That is the policy that City Council has set, and that's what we are following until the City Council decides to change their mind. But that is a City Council decision. That is not something that I can do. Is that the next question?
No, it just was like, next one is, are there any pickleball courts in Reynoldsburg?
There are not any set pickleball courts in Reynoldsburg just yet. You can play pickleball on some of the tennis courts that we have, and obviously at the community church and a few other locations you can play. We are working on some plans and working with some grant funding and some other things to actually redesign and bring some actual dedicated pickleball courts to Reynoldsburg. So,
Okay, that's it.
all right. I didn't know when it was going to come and say free the chickens or anything like that. Okay. Because we know that that's always, it's about every 3 or 4 months, it's why can't Reynoldsburg have chicken space? So, but again, take care of that. So next week, we have my good friend and state representative, Dontavius Geralds. Dontavius Geralds is a powerful advocate for all communities, and he is going to be able to join us. I'm hoping he's actually going to be able to join us live as opposed to being on social media or through the Zoom thing. But we'll see there. But obviously, they've got a lot of things going on at the State House this year, what their objectives are, and how that can impact Reynoldsburg. So I think he's going to be our first state representative that we're going to bring on this year, and we're going to continue on with that. And he's going to talk about some pretty cool pieces of legislation that he's done that, we talk about kind of leading into diversity, equity, inclusion. There's a lot of language in the Ohio Constitution that is, by today's standards, not appropriate language. referencing different minorities and things of that nature. And so he sponsored a bill to actually clear out a lot of that stuff to make sure that it wasn't, just because it's been in the Constitution doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay there. So he did get a lot of support with it, so he's going to talk about that process because, again, it's, when you look at some of the language that's in there, it's nothing that you or I or anybody who's watching would probably actually ever use, think of, or anything else. It was very antiquated. It's not going to change the intent of whatever it was, but it's going to make the language more appropriate for today's world, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that particular part. So we've got that coming up next week. Again, all sorts of fun things coming on. You have President's Day, so hopefully everybody, if you have the day off on President's Day, that's fine. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on their Super Bowl win, so enjoy that. And I know we've got our fall or winter sports actually getting ready to gear up for all of their seasons for the playoffs. So you've got girls basketball, men's basketball, you've got bowling, and you've got wrestling and things of that nature. So all sorts of stuff is going on for that. So last second question?
Nope.
Okay, good. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, stay respectful as always, and please remember to put your shopping carts away. Thanks again for coming. Bye.